New training cycles for TTT Compete and TTT Fitness start Monday, April 4th. Save 20% if you sign up before April 11th. Just use the code SAVE20 at checkout. Visit trainingthinktank.com to sign up now.
What a show, what a show.
It's not a show yet, but it will be.
Yeah, it will be. This is going to be a good one. So quarterfinals just wrapped.
Yep.
The topics we're going to talk about, we got a lot of questions on Instagram, and basically they kind of funnel into these categories. Were these good tests? How did they compare to last year? Did it redeem the open? Was there anything missing? And then we kind of move on to what to do after quarterfinals for both people who are moving on and those who aren't. And then we'll talk about, everybody had a lot of questions about no reps. So we'll end with that. And then we actually have some fun grab bag style questions, including a question from our very own Alexis Raptis about pimple popping.
No. We have to save that for our podcast.
Okay.
I have so many good
Yeah, we are going to have
questions.
her on soon. So yeah, we'll save that.
That made me nervous. Not the Alexis thing, just like you saying it.
Well, you can't remember it,
right? My brain was like, and then I feel like I'm taking a test now.
Hold on, what threw you off?
Just like we normally come in here, we just hang out, have a conversation, and you just were like, "This is what we're going."
Now y'all have to bring the thunder.
Now I feel like I'm on a quiz.
All right, so y'all want to kick this
something.
puppy off? We had a few questions. Obviously being like, what did you guys think about it? So we have, do you think these were good tests? How did they compare to last year? From Brady, from Marcinio, can't say that. From
Chris is no longer allowed to ask the questions.
Hey man, you need to come with a simple name or get out of here.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah, we don't feel
And
that way.
Joe, all right, so hit it, and I'll keep popping in with little questions that relate.
So we're just talking, we're not answering a specific question. We're just talking about the tests, or are we
Yep,
saying,
so right
are
now,
they
just
good tests?
what do you think these, how were they?
Yeah.
These good tests.
My first thought is I didn't have any time yet to really process and sit down and think about time domains, loading. So really all that's in my head is like judging the workouts and what stood out to me that I didn't expect. When I first read the first workout, the handstand push-up lunge one, I thought, oh, this is a weird number of handstand push-ups. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a limiter, a weird style of workout. Actually ended up that last set of 10 handstand push-ups, even though it was 10 strict handstand push-ups, which for elite athletes you wouldn't think is a lot, it actually played a huge role in the overall score. So I was more surprised by that. I know that's not a comment on like, was this a good test or not?
Yeah, if you could stick to the questions.
I do think if we were just going test by test with that one actually was really well written because it separated the different tiers of athletes. So in other words, yes, you saw people struggle across the board at the strict handstand push-ups or somewhere else. But even with the elites, they were going so fast that the 10 strict handstand push-ups caused problems, but they were still finishing in like these ungodly times.
Yeah.
But that was only because they went unbroken on the 30 and the 20, and then they did their lunges and maybe sets of 10 on the overhead where most people were really struggling. So it still separated out the field. And I just, to me, I love it when there is a movement requirement that test mobility. So you can get away with it like with an overhead squat. With the dumbbells, you cannot get away with bad overhead mechanics. So it was fun to see those like try to bypass that with bent arms or like throw it way back, tilt the dumbbells. You really have to figure that out. So it exposed some people.
Yeah. The weird things about that, I would say the steps versus distance.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand that, or I need to go back and think about maybe measure, is a short person just covering less distance, therefore doing less work, therefore making it an invalid test according to...
I think so.
Yeah,
that is one.
That's kind of where my first thought process went. I don't want to like criticize or shit on it, but I was thinking like, you're almost incentivizing people not to take like long, difficult steps or move fast. It's hard to short step lunges, but you can definitely shorten them versus taking the long ones if you're trying to cover 25 feet in 8 steps. So it almost challenged how people think about lunging for distance.
It certainly made it easier for the shorter or smaller athlete.
Yeah.
That is definitely the case, especially workouts 1 and 2. Now, were they offset with workouts 3, 4, and 5? Maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, just on that note, before we jump into each workout, just overall as a batch of tests, were these good tests? Like, did it make a well-rounded experience at this stage in the game?
Go ahead.
Yeah, first, I think we should kind of preface this with saying we don't know until we see all of the tests through the games now. So, and just to be fair, because here's the thing, people were hating on the open tests and getting upset because they were all like quote unquote capacity driven. These were obviously different. We can talk about that in a second. But until we see what semifinals looks like in the games, we won't really know the full picture. Now, maybe I'm giving CrossFit more credit than they deserve and assuming that they have a plan for all of these and they're going to change the test and make sure that it's a more holistic approach to the way that they have this testing body. But if they do that, then it could still be an overall like good season test. My only complaint with the way that the open was run is that it kind of
hold you to that if I hear another complaint.
Yeah. My many of complaints that I have is it's self-selected for those that probably were just like more capacity driven, simple skills. But again, the best people still got through and they made it to this stage.
I don't want to criticize CrossFit because I know how difficult it is to run a small thing, like a small online competition. And then you have to do it in a way that it's almost turning into a professional sport and also cater to a community. I think it's a hard thing to do. I'm going to try to be unbiased and like not take this as a good or bad, but more so think about it. If we're testing according to the definition that CrossFit lays out of what work capacity is and how it's measured and how fitness is defined through their 10 general skills and through their energy systems, if I look at the tests and say, are they good or bad tests? I'm going to try not to say, did I like it or do I think it was optimal? I'm going to try to hold it to that standard and say, did it do that? And what I don't like about there's a lot of things I like about the format right now, but what I don't like is that most people like myself were in the first stage of the open and then we're done. And so our measurement system for CrossFit is all just those 3 tests, which I think did a pretty poor job if you're saying, are you categorizing it against those like short time domain, mid time domain, long time domain, power, speed, endurance, agility, and testing all of those well and comprehensively? I would say no. Will that get reconciled for the best CrossFit athletes in the world by the time the games is? Probably. And I think that's what makes the CrossFit Games a good test.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah. But now when we funnel it back and we say, okay, well, if we're also creating a sport that's supposed to measure fitness, I think each stage of it should be a pretty good job of not just selecting for the fittest on earth, which is kind of what the mantra was in the past, and saying, does it do well to test them? But if we're going to create a level and hierarchy system, we say, does it test all of these people fairly across all those things? And I think the quarterfinals did a much better job of that than the open, because you had a 1 rep max test. The workout number 5 was kind of a short sprint test. I'd say they didn't really go that long. Was it like
we could say workout 3 for the slower?
But that was 3, the longest, most boring workout to watch. It was maybe in the history of CrossFit.
I'm glad they did the shuttle runs. Though. Changed something up.
Yeah, that was only 13 and a half minutes for
the best.
Yeah,
and then 24 for the worst. So it was longer for some people.
Yeah, but it didn't really test their longer time domains. That generally comes out at the games for them though.
Yeah.
So, I thought the quarterfinals was a much better test than the open.
Let me ask you this though. So what would you do if you're writing for the open and their goal is to be like as inclusive as possible? Yeah. So you have these hundreds of thousands of people that, we talked about this in the last podcast, actually. There are a lot of gym members that just go in and do a 60-minute class and they still want to do the open.
Yeah.
How do we write good tests, but also allow them to do it? Or is it just like, hey, you have to go into the scaled division?
Well, I have thought about this for years because I want to create one of those tests that people can do annually to measure their fitness. Because I find it like, how many people are going to be doing squat snatches and muscle ups and handstand walking as their form of measuring their physical fitness for their whole life? I mean, most people, a couple years in their life, and then they're like, all right, I got to do some more basic shit. I don't have 5 hours in my day to learn how to hand balance, and we're not getting paid for it. So a simple thing is like, okay, handstand walking in CrossFit as a sexy tool is used to race in workouts. But maybe in the open, it could be like, all right, we have a freestanding handstand hold test. That's level 1. And if you can't do it, then there's a regressed option of it, like a pike on a box with a certain standard. And then there's another regressed option where it's a plank hold or something like that. I think you could create that, but the problem is people want to do the hard shit and they want to think their fitness is good by doing the hard shit. And then you're like, well, maybe we're not going to create cool, sexy tests that people want to participate in if we start making them actually good for testing fitness.
Well, so that's the problem, right? Like we've talked about this in the past, but all of us got into the sport by doing something hard and just kind of like falling in love with the grind. Yeah. And I think that that's how most people fall in love with the sport. You know, they go in and it's like this unexpected challenge. Yeah. And then you're like, I want to overcome this challenge. So if you had 2 challenges in front of you and one looks like, man, this is a hard obstacle, you're going to choose that one most of the time for the type of person that's in the sport. So,
but
go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, like in that example, we think of handstand walking as a harder skill than a freestanding handstand. But if you actually put certain standards to it, I'd say for somebody to hold like a freestanding handstand with their hands not moving and any sort of body line, like if you force it,
harder.
It would take way longer to learn that than it would to do a handstand walk. But the barrier to entry on handstand walk is lower, and it also, I think, like looks cooler or something.
It has that sexy appeal.
I'm not really sure. So it's a weird problem.
Yeah. So I think big picture.
I'd like to vote handstand being on your hands at all off the island.
Let's do the foot stand walking.
I bet you there's other people that would.
You get one workout per year that can involve being on your hands.
It is. That's another kind of just like strange paradox about the whole thing. It's like it's a functional fitness test. I'm like,
that's why I say that.
Yeah, like how often are we like running in the woods chasing something down? Like I got to jump on my hands and walk.
It's like The Exorcist or something.
It's funny, but I still, for whatever reason, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I love the craziness of it. Did we cover the like, did we comprehensively
kind of, so let's jump in. Do you feel like it redeemed the Open? You mentioned that it was only the 3 tests and you said you liked it better.
Yeah, redeeming the Open would mean that the Open was like a horrible failure. So I don't think.
Sorry, this was actually a question. So I'm not, that's not my comment.
Yeah. It's your words. I don't want to say the Open was shitty and had no good aspects to it. But like I said, I think these tests were they're more comprehensive to actually highlight people that are well-rounded in fitness. Whereas I feel like in that first one, just like general linear body weight work capacity, I feel like was overly tested relative to other skills, strength, coordination, learning new skills, even just like putting in new standards. So like shuttle runs, some people will run them and like not touch with their hand, but having that many turnarounds and having to go down and touch and rotate actually challenged a lot of people's backs and hips. And the overhead dumbbell walking lunge, they couldn't touch. And a lot of people stabilize them overhead by pushing them together and pushing them back. And this has happened for years.
Right.
And then they input the standard that says, oh, no, you can't do that now. Now they got to stay out. And I think those types of things being put out, I feel like challenged people better. It challenged people to figure out how to accomplish skills without their general compensations that they've been training on a day-to-day basis. So I think it was a better test of actually identifying athletes, but that's kind of more the purpose of it than what the Open is.
For sure.
I get it.
I think it narrowed down and found some of the best. I think there are obviously always things that we can nitpick, but I agree with you. I like it when there are new things, like I already mentioned, with like you're testing somebody's mobility a little bit in a workout. So I love the overhead. I love the shuttle runs. I think that's something that they needed to add some kind of running test. It would have been cooler, in my opinion, if it was more based on like actual sprint and cut. So like an interval style workout, which would have been a lot of fun to watch. And, shuttle runs into max thrusters, rest a minute, and then do that 8 times, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But
there would have been a lot of slipping, I feel like. Because I saw people try to pick up the pace and slip in here.
For sure.
But
I mean, it definitely makes it harder. But if that's the case, you got to figure out how to do it without slipping, right?
People start putting tar on the floor.
One of the, and I'm certainly biased when it comes to this kind of stuff, but one of the things I always look at with tests now that I'm kind of out of the sport, but I still like to do it every once in a while, is if I can just jump in and do a workout, crush it, and not have to train for it, it's probably not a great test for the best athletes in the sport. So in other words, if I did the workouts that were in the Open, the deadlift is a little bit different because that is still a lot of reps, but I could do all of those tests and could have easily qualified in a really good spot just because I have a, quote unquote engine. With these tests, that wouldn't have been the case. Like having to do 30 muscle ups, you'd have to train for that to get a really good time, or 30 pistols. Really, it's only that workout. The first one, you still have to stay on top of your mobility. The total means you have to be doing some strength work. You can't just jump in and like feel comfortable with an overhead squat. So I appreciate when they add some things that you have to train for, and it can't just be the person that is quote unquote fit that can
Yeah.
jump in and do the test.
Yeah.
So on that note, sorry, you had a thought.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say on that note, was there anything y'all felt was missing? I know you mentioned the longer time domain. Anything else?
That's my biggest knock why Max thinks about it.
Yeah.
I really would have liked a 20 to 25 minute true test for the best in the sport. Like it would have been nice to see people get capped at 25 minutes and then the Travises get 20 minutes on a workout, like where he had a grind for a full 20 minutes, maybe less there wasn't a bottleneck in that workout, but a true, almost like the open workouts that have been 20 minutes, maybe with one little piece that's a little bit heavier, but he's moving for a full 20 minutes. That's something that we missed in the open and then we missed again here.
Yeah. One thing that this is not like I even think it's a good test of fitness or that it should be used, but I did notice that Olympic lifting has been a staple since really Castro's been in charge of the program of being a very high rep tool. Like Randy's come out, light power snatches and muscle ups has come out in the open, light thrusters is an Olympic lift, but just power snatches,
power clean
and jerks, even squat cleans like 19.2, which there was a lot of public criticism from the strength and conditioning world about that. Like Olympic lifting shouldn't be a tool for that. And I just found it interesting. It was really just the power snatch and it was 10 reps at a pretty heavy load. And then there was really no other like light barbell cycling. I just found that interesting. And I wonder if that means that we're going to issue in a new era of how programming is done and what that means for for the sport and B, for the transition into like general community people's training. Because a lot of people just train for the open every year.
So do you assume that the reps or the volume will come from like the power lifting movement? So like what we saw with the deadlift?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting observation that I noticed in the open and now it carried through for quarterfinals.
The other thing we didn't see is high rep squatting. I mean, even the wall balls network is 120 wall balls, but for the best in the sport, that's like, I mean, Travis didn't even have to think doing the workout. Yeah. Whereas maybe some people at the lower end. I think
the shorter female athletes throwing to 10 feet, it became more of a separator. I think for the top 500, I'd say males, it was probably unbroken the whole time and all just dictated by shuttle run speed.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where that workout was won and lost.
Yeah.
I just really like the really dense squat test that they've put in. I think that also is something that's tested at the games every year that separates. And we didn't see that this year.
Yeah. But it's going to shift how we train athletes, which then means it's actually going to shift the athletic profile of what it means to be a good CrossFitter. Because it was literally a huge part of the sport, barbell cycling under fatigue and being able to do heavy snatches and make them when you're at max effort. Whereas 185 pounds is like heavy to the average, or 135 is heavy to the average quarterfinals person, but it's probably under 70% of like Chandler touch and go'd it for 10.
Yeah.
Right. Like if that barbell was 245, I don't think anybody would be able to doing that. No. So just give some context to like what's coming for the sport.
This is not in Chris' questions list, but this is something that is like a really interesting topic to me and something I'm sure everyone's thought about. But as the tests change, how much or how different are the people that qualify from year to year? Maybe not to the games. The games are the bottom 10 or 15, but like even going into the semifinals, like all of these new names that you're going to see, do you think that's good training? Do you think it's the testing body that kind of dictates that? Because there's so many people that are so close and it just depends on what comes out. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just a combination of all of that. And then also a weird thing to think about is just the psychology of competition itself. So if you have, say you're 22 years old, or let's say even 26 years old, and you're getting into the sport and you're just starting to get better and you go through a quarterfinals last year and you just miss. You're kind of demoralized and it kind of sucks, but you strap your shit back up and you get on a good training cycle. You come back the next year and you miss out again, and you miss out even bigger because these tests just suck for you.
Yeah.
That negative psychological thing, it's a challenge for people. It really says like, well, do I really want this? Do I really want to get better? What happens if I commit another year and I don't get what I want out of it? Those are generally the things that keep people out of sport. Now, if you take the opposite and you're like, oh, I had a great experience, I qualified. Then you come back the next year and the tests are even better for you and you qualify and you win or you're in the top. And that changes a lot because it changes what you're getting from it, changes that you might be getting money and positive attention, and it fires you up and motivates you in a different kind of way. So
I wonder if that allows that person to have much faster progress than someone that's really struggling too.
Yeah. The winner's effect. I mean, there's an actual hormonal response that happens in nature. If a gorilla's fight the one that wins the fight will actually have an increased testosterone response.
I just thought of you fighting.
Yeah, no, but it happens in training. We can see it in golf.
Yeah.
Like we're going out and you're winning, and like
you had to work it in.
I did. I thought about it last night because
man.
I took an awful loss. I tried to do. I was like, all right, this was a tough weekend. I'm gonna go out. I'm just gonna.
I thought you were looking a little weak this morning.
Just came in.
That team's low.
Yeah, my testosterone is low right now from being beaten.
His low is still the upper 1%.
Maybe. Yeah.
All right. Fire away,
we got
Chris.
another one. So on these lines, do you like the 1 weekend format for quarters? This is from Lozano Mario.
Lozano.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Or Liz.
I feel bad for all these people. Don't put your names anymore. I guess they have to if it's Instagram.
I like the format of the 1 weekend and it's over. I don't like the format of we're going to get these floor plan layouts on Monday and then we're going to get the actual workouts on Thursday and have 12 hours to coordinate these highly orchestrated. Like we had to have like tape sticks with lines to show this is 15 feet, this is 10 feet, this is 25 feet, this is 8 feet. I felt like a Michael Bay as a freaking movie producer trying to make people's videos.
It really was amazing the amount of all hands on deck type vibe we had going. And that it was still, I mean, I think it was way smoother than last year. But even then, it seemed like if I was you guys, I'd probably shoot myself. I think when they're making these, they assume that it's like, for the 1 or 2 people at the gym and that they're not really thinking about organizations like us who cater to a big group.
Yeah. Or even small gyms. Like we had people reaching out to us like, oh, we don't have a 15-foot rope. You guys are competitive. Can we come by? And like, no, you don't understand. Like we barely got everyone through optimally here. And we had people that did that workout and we only had 2 available in an 11,000 square foot facility. We only had 2 possible places we could put that rope climb workout just based on the rope height. And
we had to build a tower of boxes for the wall ball.
Yeah. So like we had to go through all of this just to get 2 stations to run 40 people through. So we had every single time slot from basically like Friday at 3 all the way through Saturday at 3 filled up with 2 people going. Then some people would do the workout and be like, I could do it better.
Yeah. We had redos.
Yeah. So like we were literally doing that workout. I think our last person started at like 2:30 and then they finished the workout and we were like, get your shit uploaded right away. That's just like, it's not optimal for athletes. And I know a lot of athletes are training in places that are not going to be equipped for tons of people to go. But if you want to have a good community of athletes, you need a lot of people training in kind of that same space. So, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, personally. I agree with you. I'm going to continue to be fair to CrossFit and say that it's hard to write tests that you feel like are good tests without having some stipulations like that. I like the concept of the floor plans. When they introduce that, where it's like 8 feet away or whatever, that does standardize it, which I appreciate. But man, I actually, not even us, like we have the infrastructure to put on a weekend like that with 40 plus athletes. Like you just alluded to, the small gym that maybe has 4 or 5 people that are competing and they don't even have a rope. What do they do?
And how are they, like, are they just shutting down their classes? Like, we are lucky enough that Travis is a games athlete and owns the gym. And then we own the gym, our side of the gym. So we can communicate and be like, hey, this weekend things should be shut down to get everyone through. And they're accepting of that. We did outdoor classes, like no one made a big stink. But if you have like one person in a facility that's very small having to use space or 2 people, you're probably not going to shut down classes or like it just
or it's a financial liability for the owner.
Yeah. So I don't, it's not shitting on it. It's just saying like, this is a really hard thing to do, to try to create a professional sport where you're charging entry fees, but then you're passing all the responsibilities and difficulties and logistical things off to the people that are doing it and expecting us, like our full-time jobs are not event planners and judges. And like our full-time job is trying to coach people.
Well, the good news is if you win, you don't get shit.
We'll
not even an entry fee into the next stage.
It really is.
That
crazy.
is interesting. I didn't think about that. There was no prize money.
I feel like they should
quarters.
pass the buck on. Like if you win quarters or you get in the top 3 or something, you get to the next stage. And then if you win that, you just, a little something.
I do wonder what they do with the money that comes in from like a weekend like this, because obviously each person's paying a a relatively
Hookers and
large
blow, dude. Same thing we do.
in all seriousness, because the production value this year was really poor on those videos. Not that they did a bad job. I mean, but I guess I'm used to Chris doing videos or something, but they weren't great. You know, like
what videos are you talking about?
The standard videos. Like they were just like,
what did you need? A Michael Bay?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying.
We needed a Michael Bay.
Yeah,
one.
we did. You would assume that they would be, you know, I don't know. I'm judging it compared to the NBA and the NFL, I guess, and that's not fair. But they just do amazing jobs when they're like releasing new standards and you know all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely challenging. The one thing I was thinking about just with in general with the way that a weekend like that is planned. When you have 5 workouts and you have a really big gym like this, for us, it's just really complicated to figure out the ordering of events. So also the same thing's true with these smaller gyms.
That was actually one of the questions. Brendan wants to know what was the biggest challenge of the arranged floor plans. Hit it.
Yeah, I mean, we figured it out because like Max and everyone is basically sending out an email and saying, okay, this is when we're going to do the first event, second event, whatever. But I think about the gyms that maybe aren't as organized, how hard that was to order the events with maybe 5 or 6 athletes. So that's just another thing I was going to say is complicated for the weekend.
Yeah. The biggest challenge for us, I would say, was the rope climb because there was only 2 lanes, and actually the strength.
Oh, so many plates.
So many plates and a 30.
We have a lot of plates.
Yeah, and a 30-minute time cap.
We also have a lot of strong people.
Yeah, that's true.
It was insane. It was
maybe those weaker gyms had it.
To me, that was the most fun event to watch.
Yeah.
Watching like Jimmy clean 400, Cal 282.
Ooh, Alexis's buzzer beater was cool.
Yeah,
that's
that
on
was pretty
YouTube
cool.
if you want to go watch that.
Is it up?
Yeah, there's a clip of all of our people.
All the best that I could.
That was so much fun to watch.
I think you put Cal's clean.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I said 221, but it was 282.
Yeah.
Cal clean 282. And it looked easy.
I know.
She like overpulled. Yeah. It was crazy.
There's some really strong people.
I know.
Just in general.
We had some strong people in compete too.
Yeah.
A couple 400-pound cleans, like 390 benchers. Crazy. That's the one thing CrossFitters cannot bench. No one's gotten stronger.
Well,
at the bench.
But again, this is the first time it's now tested in a max. I know most people were doing it because they're like, oh, it's like Linda, so I'm going to do pump training. Now it's come out as a 1RM, and now there's going to be a standard to it. But it blows my mind that there's people that have 400-pound cleans and under 300-pound benches. I'm like, how is that possible? I feel like I could bench more than I can clean right now.
I was interested to see. I mean, there were still some guys and girls that had really big benches.
Yeah, for sure.
On the average, they were still very low compared to where I thought they would be.
And overhead squats too. Like I think as an athlete, I'm using quotes there, but as an athlete, I'm pretty good at the overhead squat and feel comfortable snatching. But I feel like the level of good it's just another level. Like competitors that are like, oh yeah, 375, or girls that are like over 250 pounds. I'm like, wow, that's like 1.7 times body weight.
I know. What did you think about all these people getting PRs? Even those that were on site, do you think it was just because it was the first event and like it's the first time in a long time that it was tested fresh?
Yeah, I think fresh, like environment and context matters so much in strength. And like you can find that out about yourself pretty easily. Like you train by yourself on a regular basis and like you get accustomed to like, oh, I'm pretty good at this weight, like whatever it is, 135, this feels comfortable. And then you get around a group of people. Now, assuming that you're a good competitor and you can actually harness those nerves into explosive power, you can, like, sometimes people will just get into an environment like that and just like 20-pound PRs. Yeah. I think athletes take that to another level because they care more about it. So they've been anticipating that moment for 5-6 weeks. They get around. It happened that both of our heats were pretty successful, that people were hitting big lifts, and that shit is contagious when they're your training partners. It can be demoralizing when you're looking at competitors doing that to you. But generally speaking, in the environment we have, I say, given that they are competing against one another, we've had pretty good just like community vibes within that competition.
Man, it felt like one after another.
Yeah,
it was just cleans and then bench press and then overhead squat, buzzer beater overhead squat. Like it was a lot of fun to watch.
The music is loud. We were all tense because I'm like, fuck, we got to get going. I'm like, get your shit. Like it was all laid out. And I think that just like brings out tension in people. So that's my thought.
I really appreciated though, going back to the fresh thing, that it was allowed to be tested fresh. One of my complaints this is another complaint, Chris, of the sport, and I get why they test it under fatigue, but like at the games, you remember they did Murph and then they did the clean and jerk right after, and people were like missing 300 pounds. The guys
were still impressive what they hit, but
it was, but then new people to the sport watch that and they're like, oh, that's not, these CrossFitters are weak. But in reality, like I remember Aaron Hanna hit like one of the heaviest cleans. It was like 315. It wasn't even that much, was it?
No, I think he hit 355.
355?
I think so.
I'm
not 100%
but he was,
positive.
Whatever it was like 20 pounds under his max,
Yeah.
which was still like really impressive for that day because a lot of guys were 30, 40 pounds under. And I was like, man, it would have been so cool to watch someone like him who was really strong at the time hit his true PR and then go and do Murph. You know, you could do it the other way around. It doesn't matter. And then you get a fun event to watch.
I just think it all comes down to clear communication. Like, what are we doing with the sport? Are we keeping the ideology of it being like the most grueling physical fitness test that you possibly can create? Then I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But if we're saying, hey, we want to highlight our athletes and here's what the tests are going to look like. And while maybe at our core, the ideology of fitness is about unknown and unknowable fitness expression on any test, the sport kind of takes it to a different, it's taking it in a different direction, saying like, here are the proxies we're using for getting tests that make sense for our definition.
Right.
So I think we just kind of need to know what they're thinking. And then you can kind of go back and evaluate, was the open good? Was quarterfinals good at doing this? I think it's just right now, it's very unclear. And I think it probably will be, unfortunately or fortunately, because it means they're working it out for the next couple of years. I think they're going to probably do stuff, get community feedback, do stuff. And the people right now, a lot of the people that are probably in charge were people that, have been on the inner circle for a really long period of time and saw things that they probably disagreed with, that they didn't have a voice. And now it's like, all right, well, now you are the authority. So you make that decision. So we know there's going to be changes. Right. And, I know my own biases to know that I also don't like, not that I don't like change, but it will always like shock me and make me like think and be hyper analytical of like, okay, why'd this happen? Is this a good change? Do I want to keep participating with this type of change? Is this good for us? Good for our athletes?
Yeah, I guess my ask is just, I want good tests that are challenging, but I want to highlight how good the best athletes in the sport are, especially at the games. I said this on a podcast with Travis right after the games, but we were at my sister-in-law's house and we turned it on. This was like a rerun a couple months after, and they were doing the deadlift and freestanding handstand push-up workout. And she was a gymnast, and so she's watching it, and the guys are failing one after the next after the next, and she's like, "These are the best in the sport. Like, this is awful." And
then you hit her with that context, and she was really impressed, right?
She was not impressed because she's like, "No, you don't understand." But she's like, "Well, that's like something that's like basic level 1 gymnastics, whatever." Yeah. And so,
but you're fresh ass over there.
But that's what's frustrating to me. I want people to see the very best, because if they told them ahead of time, everyone would have practiced and they would have crushed it. And then the playing field is still level.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Here's another question.
Hold on.
No, this is good.
Let's get off the sport.
Okay.
We will.
What's the next thing then?
This is one more question about this.
About what?
About the open and quarterfinals. What do you think about the leaks? Do you think those were intentional?
Okay. We can play this.
We can play this game? Oh, okay. I just found it interesting.
Do you think they purposely leaked them accidentally?
Why?
I think they did.
Why?
I don't know.
How else were they unpublished or whatever the setting is on YouTube?
I can imagine somebody just putting in the wrong date.
No.
It's
You have to have the link.
Playlist, but people who are smart, like if I did that and people really wanted to find our unlisted stuff, they could.
How?
Oh, really?
Don't you have to have the direct link to that?
You do, but you could like.
So the question then is, how long had people known?
Yeah, that's a better question. I guess you could, if someone has a screenshot of the upload date, you could probably find out because it would say when it was uploaded.
I'd like to know that.
I would like, now I got into
someone was training for like 6 weeks.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
The only bummer about the leaks is not knowing if they're real or not.
Well, because we couldn't do it early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not because you couldn't do it early, because now you're sitting there like, is this fake? Is this?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was twice though, back-to-back weeks.
What
the
happened?
last week of the Open, that workout was leaked.
Oh yeah.
And then in quarterfinals, all the workouts.
There's
were
a
leaked.
mole.
That's
CrossFit.
what I think. It's a Dave Castro fan that's like, let's keep screwing with them.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was petty shit like that happen. Like that. I feel like
what's the other option here?
like how,
There are no other options.
I mean,
right?
the other option is just a technical oversight, right? Or would they know? Like, I don't know enough about technology. If
so
I uploaded unlisted, I would think people wouldn't be able to find it.
Right. So let's get rid of that, because that's like an obvious one.
Yeah.
But somewhere, we all know this, somewhere there's a person, these are human beings. Yeah. Someone working for HQ has leaked it to this person, who's leaked it to this person. So it's getting out.
Yeah.
How could they fix leaks in general? Screw the YouTube specific example.
Oh man. I think that we just need to let go of that whole like
unknown
yeah, shit.
Me too.
It's just like, we kind of know this, or if there is going to be an unknown aspect of it, I feel like it can happen at the final stage, like 1 or 2 workouts that there's a final
at the
reveal.
games, you mean?
And I think even if you did that, I had been thinking about this, is like, if I was hosting an event and I wanted to keep the workouts unknown, but I still wanted to experiment to figure out like what was happening. Yeah. Reps or weights that made sense, or how to use the landscape, is that I would publicize all of my testing. So maybe if I actually had done the workout one time and I really liked it, but I keep testing and I test different ones in different places. So you just don't know like what in that body of tests is going to come out, but you kind of know the equipment and where it's going to be.
And to Brandon's point, that would have made it where they would have known the standard.
They could have practiced it in some capacity, but it still makes it really hard to write a training program for that, because you're like, all right, well, if I did these weird kipping handstand push-up forward walks on one day, and then I did 180-degree turnaround handstand walks here, and then I did handstand walk obstacles, people aren't going to be able to like create a training structure around all of them. And then
so many people would overtrain.
Yeah. But that's where it becomes a really interesting, that's where I think the magic of what makes a good CrossFit coach and athlete team is how do you create a training program that allows you to look like you've trained all of those different things without obsessively just doing a ton of volume of all of them. Because
that would also tell you who the best
that.
athletes are, because they could pick up the skills quickly.
Yeah. So I think there's a halfway point. I think in the way that it's currently set up, I would say like most large infrastructures, there's some level of corruption and power that gets built
even
up.
If it's not corrupt, even if it's just humans being human.
That's what I mean. But that kind of like is what I'm saying, is like somebody in a power position has a vested interest in somebody that's in an athlete position that is probably getting some information that's giving them a competitive edge, and then also making this person's career and stuff better. So like, that's a hard thing to work around, but I'm sure that there's some of that happening.
All right. So final answer. Do you think it was just a mistake, or do you think someone told a friend, or do you think it's like an actual mole?
I have to vote on this.
Yes, you have to vote.
Well, just because it'd be the most fun, juicy conspiracy theory, I'm going to say there's a mole in there.
It's like a Dave Castro friend.
I don't even know about a Dave Castro friend. Maybe it's somebody with a moral.
On that note, did the leaking do anything good for us?
I mean, I think it helped. It helped us understand. We knew all the time caps, so we could kind of understand like right away. I was like, holy shit, this is a 30-minute strength event. If we're doing this on day one and they're doing another workout, and this is the floor plan that took away our handstand push-up wall. Like when we first had the floor plans, we had thought we would have 8 stations for the handstand push-up workout. But then when they announced that you had to lunge parallel to your line, it cut it down to 4. And
we didn't know that till the leak?
We didn't know that until the actual workout leak, because
so our whole lives would have been changed if it didn't leak. So it really did help.
Oh, it helped us a
just with planning, not like athlete performance or something like that.
Competitively, I would say that it helped like 5% to be able to have a little bit more time to think about the shuttle run, how long that's going to take, how long, but I think we could have still done that analysis fine if it came out Thursday at 3, because that wasn't due until Saturday. But
so there was definitely from organization.
Maybe one of the TTT fans was the mole. They're like, they're going to be screwed on site with that many athletes. Let's publish these.
If I had a vote, I think what Chris said, it was a friend that's like, oh, check these workouts out, and gave him the link or something.
And then like 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Chris?
All right, so let's move on to what to do next after quarters. So Chris Mortimer, 89.
Ooh.
He goes, where to go from here for people who didn't make semis?
I wonder if he was born in 1989.
That's what I was thinking.
I always wondered the same thing. Was there 88 other Chris Mortimers on Instagram before he got there? Or?
That's true.
Yeah. I would never be the person who gets the numbers in their name. That's just something I would never do.
Why?
How about you guys? I don't know. It just seems tacky.
I would.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Like I would just done Chris.Mortimer or
I have done it in the past.
Well, my name is so unique that I've never had to put numbers. Because Brandon, BRANNEN is like no one has that. So like if I do it at gmail.com, then no one else has that.
Well, now they do.
Must be nice.
I bet you can't get Brandon at gmail.com.
Well, mine's my name. Well, shoot, I shouldn't say that. Don't email
Right, so where to go from
Everybody
here
spam him.
if you didn't make semis?
Yeah. Well, first things first, today is Monday. Is this video going up right away?
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay, so it's going to be the week of you just finishing quarterfinals. Just chill for a little bit. It doesn't need to be crazy, but like I'd say at the minimum a week. Reflect, go back, look at all the workouts, identify what you didn't do well, what you did do well, figure out what your goals are for the next season and how realistic those goals are. Find somebody that can give you guidance or a community that can give you guidance, and then kind of start your off-season process. If you have aches and pains and injuries, work through them, start to work kind of on your limiters. As like almost a free way to think about it is we release new cycle videos every time for our training programs where a bunch of people are getting ready for the season. If you listen to those, yes, you can be a participant in our community and train with us, but you can also get an insight of how we think about how you should train for next year based on what we saw in the tests, what it might mean for the tests. Like right now, a quarterfinals athlete should probably train a little bit different than an intermediate open-based athlete, just in terms of what we saw from the tests.
But I think the rules of thumb that we put out last week in the podcast about open athletes still make sense. So, one of the things I'd say is don't be overreactive to the test.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that you're really bad at, yes, you need to work on that, but don't just start grinding right now on like that movement. Maybe break it down, come up with some plans for like why was the lunge so hard overhead? Like it can't just be, I'm going to do overhead lunges all year. Maybe it's fixing the overhead mechanics and then start adding those in, or handstand push-ups or wall balls, whatever. You name the limitation that you had. And then everything else you said, I think is the most important thing to me at this time of the year is to go back and reflect and then actually identify both the strengths and the weaknesses that you had so that you can identify how to plan the year and you're taking care of those things.
I honestly think it really comes down to just making a good plan.
Yeah.
And plans are never perfect. Sometimes I go through them and I get frustrated because I'm like, oh, here's my plan. Like on site, we like plan all these heats and then shit happens. But had we not even had a plan to kind of architecture or like organize, okay, this is how many bodies we have. This is how they have to get through it. Here's who we want to make sure like gets as much of a performance boost as we possibly can at this time of the year based on what the cut and qualification process is. Had we not gone through that, I feel like we would have been absolutely screwed. Yeah. Now, that's a micro level of a singular competition. And once you finish a season, the goal is to kind of like zoom out and get the macro profile of what is this to you? Is this something that you need to take seriously because you're super passionate about it? Well, if you are, then make a plan for what are you not good at? How do you keep that fire burning? How do you actually make progress? Or if when you zoom out, you're like, this isn't that important to me. Like I have a really good time. I'm probably not going to close the gap from the middle of the quarterfinals to the end of the quarterfinals. Then you construct your whole plan to be like, oh, I need to optimize like the fun aspect of this. I need to make sure I feel good and make sure I like what I'm doing and who I'm doing it with. So I think the planning and reflecting part is super important. And if you pay attention to us, we'll continue to go through that process, right? Like right now it's super fresh, but now I'm going to sit down and plan out, okay, now we're going to get ready for semifinals, test change. These people are getting ready for their off season. What do we really need to do in a training environment? What is the average athlete inside of our program? Where are their skill sets? Where they get exposed? And that thinking process allows us to get better over time. And to me, that's one of like the highlights of, if you look at all of the training programs of CrossFit that have had success, they all have some way of organizing that planning process. Sure. It's not always the same and it doesn't sound the same when you hear it, but some people have something more simple like, hey, we got a checklist of movements that we hit every week and we make sure we do a certain number of reps of them. And some people do it through like, endurance protocols, or some people combine those types of things. So that would be my thought, is make a good plan.
So I agree with all those things. What about the people that just missed out? Like how, and this is probably more like talking to like the mindset moving forward, but the person that's 125th, that's like, they executed so well, but there's that one thing. What, like, is there one piece of advice that you would give them as they reflect back and then start? Because that fire, some people just like naturally it burns and they're ready to go, but some people like can be really demoralized.
Yeah. I would say two things I've learned over the course of my life as a coach and an athlete is, one is that the losses are the best learning experiences. And it's how you react to those that I think shapes the nature of your progress over the long term. And in our sport, we have two big examples of it, with Froning falling down the rope. And then now he's like the rope king.
Yeah,
that's like,
amazing.
And he does it all the time. And then you have Frazier losing the games and taking second that year to Ben Smith, because I think it was a pegboard, or I can't remember exactly how he lost it, but
that sheer domination.
Yeah. And those like losses can spark them to get better. Anytime, and that would be number one, is learn from that loss and actually use it as an opportunity to get better. Like, what'd you get exposed in and how can you fix it?
And we'll actually have our very own Alexis Raptis on, as we mentioned earlier, who had that moment last year.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, as you're going, I just want to say, as the GOAT always says, Tom Brady, you either win or you learn.
Yeah, that's actually a book title of
I thought he said you either retire or you unretire.
yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Or you retire and then unretire. What was the second? Oh, the second is that it's a privilege to be in a position where you have a near miss. Like, it's very easy to hold a negative attitude. Like, I took 125th. I lost to 124 people and I didn't make the cut. But you also beat thousands of people and are competitive with the most elite people in the world at this. Like, that's a privilege, and that's something that you need to figure out how to celebrate, even if your standard is higher, right? Like, a lot of times really A-type people will be like, well, my standards are higher than that. It's either win or nothing. And I'm like, okay, fine. But the likelihood that you're going to be able to have that mindset in a really high level competitive sport is very small. And if you do, it's only going to be for a very short period of time. Like, Matt Frazier was, for 5 years, walked around maybe not even feeling like he was the most dominant person and feeling like he had to prove it every time. But I can bet your bottom dollar right now, he does not have that same level of confidence and attitude about winning CrossFit workouts. It's like, that's a temporary state of mind.
Right.
So I think it's very important to be like, okay, this is where I am right now. Even if my ambition is up there, I still got to be more neutral and not use this as an opportunity to beat myself up, because that just does no good for your long-term confidence.
On that same note, we got Abby 2Ys Beenan wants to know how to handle wants to know how to handle post-comp slump. That's a real thing, right?
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, a little bit of that is what you just alluded to.
Yeah. I mean, reframing your narrative, I think, is important, because a lot of times when you're in the slump, some guy has he's an engineer, I think, and he had created an engineering solution for identifying what happiness is. And it's basically like, has nothing to do with your outside, like, things that are happening in your life. It has more to do with what you expect from the outside environment. So if you're disappointed, it meant that you went into the season with these expectations and they're up here and you didn't meet them. So your reality and what your experience is underneath your expectations. A same person who performed at that same level, like 125th, if their expectation was that they finish in the top 1,000th, which it is, and they got the same score, this person is going to be happy because life and their performance exceeded their expectations. So it's a really powerful tool to be able to reframe and look at your perspective and be like, oh, okay, like, maybe I didn't meet my expectation. However, here are the wins that I had. Here's what I could do moving forward, and just try to not sit in that emotion and cultivate it for long periods of time. Because I think that's what creates a slump, is like, it's okay to feel upset. It's not okay to feel upset for 5 months about, not doing as well as you wanted in a competition.
Yeah. Sometimes I just feel like expectations can be so hard, though, because you don't want to have no expectations.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just doing it to do it, because then it's hard to motivate yourself, or you're just lying. Right. And then the liar comes out in you when you compete and you don't ever push yourself. Right. But if you have too high of expectations or unrealistic expectations, you're always disappointed.
Yeah.
So how do you how would you tell an athlete to frame those expectations going into a year? I mean, maybe Travis, if you're willing to share some of that, is a good example, because most people don't know, but like he took some time off to kind of deal with some things and, came in not as well prepared as he probably would like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I should probably pull up. He's been working with a mental performance coach for a little over a year. And he sent me, I won't read all of his words, but let me see if I can find like a little things. Like, first sentence, what I learned from that this weekend is, and then I'm not going to finish all of his words, but just like he instantaneously reconciling the disappointment, not sitting in it. Like one of the things is like nothing is guaranteed. You have to continue to work day in and day out. Like this is a reminder. I didn't trigger this, maybe his conversation with his mental performance coach, but now these things have become habit for him, right? Like it's like, okay, I'm in a bad position. I can choose to make decisions that are going to take me out of it and make me better moving forward, or I can choose to just like wallow in the despair for a period of time. And I think if you've done that, like I've spent a lot of my time being a sour puss about losing because I, like, for whatever reason, I just wasn't good at dealing with it. And I didn't realize it, but that was a choice I was making. I still don't like losing. I still don't either. Hate it, but I don't let it dictate my attitude. It's like, okay, this is just a thing that happened that I don't want to happen again. How can I fix it? And he's got an action plan in here of what he needs to do to make sure that he doesn't have that same experience in semifinals. And I think those reframing tools, they sound so simple. You're like, it's just words, but it really is like change your words, change your thoughts, change your thoughts, change your actions, change your actions, change your reality. Like that actually does happen if people can apply these mental tools on a regular basis.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say on that topic is take some time off, like get away from it and then allow yourself to reframe the conversation so that you can plan for the year. It all goes back to that whole planning process. But if you just dive right back in, it's just really hard to digest what just happened and then actually come up with a good plan.
It's self-reflection. I think that's the ultimate tool. And I think that's we built all of Training Think Tank really in the beginning on one-on-one coaching. And I think what we were helping people do was reflecting on their training. Hey, this is what you did, but this is what it compares to. Hey, this is what you can do in this, but this is what you need to do. Or you went through this experience and it's like, okay, well, this is what I saw in you. I saw you act like this and then it caused this. And then that made you perform less good at this. And that reflection process, I feel like, is really what you need to do post-season. Reflecting on your training, that's hard if you're a beginner athlete because there's a lot of shit to train for. But I think in that capacity, you lean on a coaching organization or you lean on a coach, right? Like there's people that have done this for years. You can pick up what makes sense from them that works for you, discard anything else, and just kind of trust that process of getting better until you develop a veteran perspective about how to get good at the sport.
We also reflect in our online programs. So with Compete.
Hold on. Speaking of that, Z Gibbons won.
Z Gibbons.
He says, should I start with a certain programming or get a coach if I want to start competing?
Start competing.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously just depends on his personal preference, but like with Compete, what I was going to say is, we are doing that review this week, so we're all sitting down actually after we do this podcast and we're going to review the scores that we have from everyone that did quarterfinals in the open, look at the training from the last year and then come up with a game plan. Okay, what did we do well as coaches? What did we do poorly? How can we better plan this next season? Yeah. And I think that that's just so important, not only on the athlete side, but on the coach's side to come up with a game plan that makes sense for them. And obviously when you have, a lot of people in a program, it can't be individually written, but we can take all of these averages and say, hey, everyone in the program did really well on these things, but maybe not this. Can we work on this a little bit more or whatever it may be?
I want to answer that question specifically. So if somebody's a pure beginner, like you can't do the skills yet of the sport, my recommendation would be to go find a coach anywhere. It doesn't even need to be a high level person, just somebody that's local to you that you can do muscle up technique work or just have them show you kipping pull-ups and show you squat snatches until you have a very basic requisite ability to do these things. Then once you get to that point, and I'd call that an intermediate athlete, then I feel like it makes sense. I would say that my personal preference with athletes like that would be to put them into our intermediate division of Compete and spend a period of time actually training consistently. Because most people say after a bad experience, I want to compete. But then when you have to do all the things that are required of a competitor, you don't actually do the work and you don't want to be a competitor. It's like, I listen to this motivation thing. It's like everybody wants to be a beast until you have to do what real beasts do.
Yeah. Wait, you're just going to spit out a bullshit version of the Mike Tyson quote?
Is that what it is? That's what it's from?
Well, it's everyone wants to be a fighter until you get punched in the face or whatever.
No, that's everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
No. Sorry, I'm thinking of Ronnie Coleman. Everyone wants to be a bodybuilder, but no one wants to lift these heavy ass weights.
Yeah. Same concept.
Sorry.
Yes. All right. Now we're on the same page.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah. But if you go through a period of time in the intermediate division, you're training and you're building your skills and you're getting better and you're loving training and you've done it for a period of months, that's when I feel like it actually could make sense to try to transition into a one-on-one coaching relationship where you may even still be using some of that group training, but you're able to identify what exactly it is that you need to work on. But I would say for most people, getting into a program, like I'll promote ours because we put a lot of work into it and I believe that it could actually help you. But if you get in there, you understand how we think about training, how we prescribe it, how we periodize and break down the year to try to encourage longevity, how we have other programs in there that you can kind of transition to if you do get injured or burnt out. And I think you're participating in a community that can help support you, which is a helpful thing to go through because a lot of times people think it's just about what you do. But in the end of most people's process, I think what they find most value is who they did it with.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would probably be my recommendation for most people is get a requisite amount of skills. Once you have those, participate in any sort of a program that continues to cultivate those basic skills, basic strength requirements, basic weightlifting technique, basic ability to do the higher level skills, muscle ups, double unders. And then once you have those things, then you can kind of look for more individualized coaching. And I don't know, that'd be my kind of like step-by-step process to answer that question. Cause I think it's different for everyone.
For sure.
Anything else on what to do after quarterfinals? Actually, you know what? I just saw some more questions. Will bench strength progressions become more common? Ollie wants to know.
We definitely do them with our individual athletes. We put them in and compete as well. That's something that we always layer in. If you really wanted to train like 1RM strength, you'd probably have to do it on a regular basis. So that's a little bit more challenging when there are so many other things to do. But I do think it's worthwhile. Like having that horizontal pressing strength will help you with other things in the sport. So most people are doing that in other programs as well. It's just a matter of like, are you doing it like Max talked about earlier, where it's like the pump sessions like the Lindas, which may be needed for semifinals, or is it more like true absolute strength?
Yeah, I'll be really interested because one of the things that I've noticed from a lot of CrossFitters is a lot of them complain about shoulder pain when they do bench press. A lot. And I don't know if it's because of like what's required of your shoulders and body to be a good CrossFitter sets you up not to be in a good anatomical position to bench, or if that like it's a self-selection process. Like they select away from things that are bench related because they're not set up well for it. But it'll be interesting to me to see if people start training their 1RMs and bench, what does that mean for the rest of their other skills? And like, will their volume tolerance for muscle ups or will their ability overhead stay as good? Because every time they make these changes, it shifts the dynamic of what the future athlete that's successful looks like. But yes, we will train bench.
If events, J Dups 23 wants to know if events 4 and 5 were your two lowest scores, and then is the next step a 2 to 3 month strength cycle?
2 and 5. 2 is
4 and 5.
No. If 4 and 5. 4 and 5
so
were
total
and
the snatch.
The power snatch.
Yeah, it's definitely a strength deficit. How you handle that, I think, again, you if you have a coach, then you would have that conversation with them. We will run through multiple strength cycles and compete. We actually are starting a new cycle on April 4th, which a video will come out this week on that. So that's what, we're running strength progressions all year round because we realize the benefit of that. Even if you're already strong, the benefit of that with the capacity-based work, like doing 110 deadlifts or however many it was in that workout, it's important to be able to do that.
Yeah, that I feel like now, to answer the question specifically, I think it would depend on how far back those weaknesses are. Because I had that conversation with somebody on site. I was like, you got to do everything you can for the next year to get stronger, because it doesn't matter how good you are at these tests. This one is too far back for you ever to break top 120. So if you want to compete against the best, you have to get stronger. But there could be somebody that's like, these are your worst scores, but they're still close enough that it might not make sense to over prioritize, and it might make sense to try to get these two better. And then jumping on your point, that I feel like strength now is just, it's such a big requirement of the sport, and the weights are so heavy that you just have to be strong to be good at the sport. And you can't really ever come off of a strength cycle. Just like you're either on a strength cycle or you're on a maintenance strength cycle.
Exactly.
It's like, that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see. Amy Stupak. Shout out Amy. She said she made it to quarterfinals.
Semifinals?
Or I made it. No, it says I made it to quarterfinals. Need to dial in ring muscle ups and bar muscle ups. But should I move to the RX path and work on those separately?
You
That
certainly
would be a good option.
Yeah. Amy's in the program. She's done a great job. So good job, Amy, for all the hard work you put in. You certainly could do RX because I think you can handle that volume, and then go to the intermediate path for the progressions for muscle ups.
Yeah.
Mia, as we've talked about in the past, has done a great job writing these longer progressions for both the bar muscle up and the ring muscle up. And a lot of times it's like technical aspects. Amy's she's strong enough to do them, but I think some, continuing to gain strict gymnastic strength and then the technique kind of layered in, that's what you would get from the intermediate path. And you can do all your other work in the RX path.
I'm very hesitant to bring this up because sometimes we say things and then it takes too long to do them, or we don't do them, but we are going to try to work on also providing skill programs that are more specific that you could run alongside. So hopefully this is probably more of a summer project, but hopefully by the summer, which would still give you time for next season, you'd be able to do the RX path and then take a muscle up skill program and layer it into your program that might be in between what the intermediate like skill progressions to obtain the skills are, and then what is tested in the RX path. It's kind of like an in between, like, okay, now start to build some capacity in this. So
we are working
but
on
that's
those.
not an option right now.
Yeah. Those will be awesome.
This whole story, bro. Z2 Square, shout out Zach, wants to know, how does an athlete stay focused going from indie quarterfinals to team quarterfinals and not lose steam?
It's a lot. Man, that's a lot of testing. Well, I'm not sure I would have done both because it's only 2 weeks apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
there are a lot of people that are doing that.
I know. Yeah. Let me think and not judge your decisions.
Why would you do that?
Or maybe the answer is you do it and you do lose steam.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you might lose steam. I would say to minimize the steam loss, take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as kind of like easier EMOM based training. You probably need to.
So he won't hear that. So y'all should text him.
So, So
do that.
We'll try to make sure that your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was easier, and then probably get 2 hard training sessions in on Friday, Saturday, and then taper on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That gives you, I feel like, enough hard training mixed in there that you keep some of the intensity, but enough low intensity that you can kind of rebuild your steam profile.
And I will say, I totally get the people that are doing that. This is the one time of the year that they get to compete, or maybe they legitimately had a chance both in indie and team. They want to see if they can make it on. So we understand that. It's probably not ideal if you have like one that you're much better at. If you have a team like our team here, they didn't do the indie quarterfinal because they wanted to prep for that.
Both teams.
Yeah, that's probably wise. But I also totally get this time of year. It's like, this is your season, so do it.
Yeah.
All right. So your wife, Brandon, we're moving on to our final topic.
Why did you not do it?
Actually, we have the grab bag questions, which we'll get to that.
Is that last?
But our final real topic is no reps.
Okay.
And Jordan Dorman, 33.
Ooh.
Why
JD,
33? That was her basketball number?
That was her basketball number. Yeah, you can go on YouTube, type in Jordan Dorman, watch her drop some bombs.
Well, she posted pictures of her with Brittany Griner, right?
Yeah. Man, it's crazy. She has other ones where it's like she's at her waist. And Jordan's 5'7", so it's not like she's like a short female, but like I think she's 6'11", or how tall is Brittany Griner? Do you know?
Tall.
She's so tall. It was amazing.
Have you seen together
pictures
at Florida?
No, she played for Baylor, and in the tournament they played against each other.
And they got a picture.
And, yeah, well, she was next to her on the free throw line. I'm like, what are you gonna block her out? Like, what? Get out of your mind.
Hopefully they're treating her okay over there, and she gets back at some point.
That is true.
All right, so Jordan, your wife wants to know thoughts on the no reps. Eyeballs. And then hold on, let me read the other ones. Low 7962 wants to know 7962. That's not your basketball number.
Yeah.
Was that
or the year you were
was that
born?
like your number on your marathon shirt? You know, the little tag.
Yeah.
What do you think about this whole controversy pertaining to moving standards for elites? And then Christopher the Jerry wants to know thoughts on high-level athletes posting dodgy video submissions. So 3 questions on no reps. Hit it.
Oh my God, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
Where do we even start with that?
I think we, again, should kind of layer this in with some positives and say it's very challenging in a sport that's remote to handle or create a system that makes sense.
Yeah.
With that said, I will knock CrossFit in that they have not made the right decisions to handle it well. And I think that they are actively trying to do that. You can see that they've been handing out no reps left and right over the last 24 hours. We've had so many athletes that got, popped by a minute here or 5 reps here, whatever. So I appreciate that they're doing that. I think that's the right move. The one thing that I will say is they should open source it if it's going to be remote. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is they've done this in the past, but basically everyone that wants to compete in semifinals must publish all their videos. They must be up. They must be live by the time it's cut off.
I think that it should be everybody in quarterfinals. I feel like you shouldn't even be able to put your score in without it because
without a video published to the public.
Because without that, people I know that they're handing out a ton of no reps, and almost every one of our athletes on site with pistols got major penalties, which makes me think, okay, well, we need to reevaluate. Like Noah's been in the sport for years. He's been on the regional floor doing pistol workouts and winning
Games
them.
Floor,
he
won that workout.
Won Mary at the games. Pistols were in 24.
We should watch the video of Mary and the pistols that I posted for this and see how different they are.
And
were the standards different or the same?
No, exactly
same. It's always been the same. And
I mean, sometimes they change.
And last year, or in 20.4, when the CrossFit Games qualification process was the CrossFit Open, there were pistols in it.
Yeah.
And if you watch those videos, they're the same. Yeah. And I watched it and I really, we were getting hate on some of the YouTube comments about from
Affliction t-shirt wearers.
Yeah. I'm sure from the most knowledgeable CrossFit experts on the planet were those people giving us, but I saw them and I was like, I don't see what they're looking for, that there's no extension. Then I kind of went through the video and I'm like, okay, well, is it his hips not opening? Is it his feet touching, his other foot touching before this foot is fully extended? And then what's the extent of that? Does he need to stand all the way up with a full ankle, knee, hip, shoulder alignment in a fully tall position before putting the other foot down? And that's okay if that's going to be the standard, but it needs to be uniform, and the penalties need to be applied uniform, because there's people on the, if he's getting a major penalty for what would be, let's say, 1/10 of a second per rep on all of them. So it's not going to be that many total seconds that the actual, or let's say 1/4 of a second even.
Yeah.
The actual penalty is not how long it would have taken him to meet that standard. It's more so this isn't good and it's a major penalty. But if he gets a 2-minute penalty, how many people inside this bucket didn't get a penalty?
Yeah, Travis
that could then jump this?
Travis and I were talking about that. So what I mean is, if you want to make semifinals, you must publish a video. Everyone else is washed out of the leaderboard.
Oh, it just goes out.
Yeah,
oh,
so you're completely gone.
Yeah,
and then
then that would be the same thing as everybody posting.
The reason I say that is because there will be people that just won't publish the videos, and they would have to delete those people anyhow.
Yeah.
So you would say everyone publish videos. Well, the people that don't, so you could just say it that way. They're gone, and then it's an upvote or downvote. If it's bad reps, then people can go and look at those, and then it flags CrossFit to then review.
Yeah.
I understand that they don't have the resources to view thousands of videos.
Yeah.
But if there are 500 videos tagged, they can go through there. They better go through there for how much people are paying to compete in the sport and how we want the sport to be legitimate. The judging standard has to be high. They need to go through there and look at those. I agree. I mean, Travis,
that's where it gets interesting, because they're going to target the big names, but they're not going to target Tater McElroy.
Yeah. And the big name standards are better than, if we're
Noah's pistols were much better than
If we're criticizing Noah and Travis's and Kyle B's and Jake's pistols out there, I know there are hundreds of people on the leaderboard that their foot's hitting the ground when they go down to squat, or they're losing balance and putting the foot down, who nobody's reviewing those videos and giving no reps, but they, in a workout like that, they could potentially be 2 minutes behind an elite. And then when this penalty is applied, that person with shit standards and who went slowly is now beating this person who went very fast with, all right, maybe you're skirting the line of what the standard is, but that applies in every competitive sport. Like if you say, hey, there's a $300,000 prize to do this task, but here's the line of where that task is, the winner is going to be the person that is as close to that line as possible, or somebody with potentially like sketchy belief systems or whatever, who's willing to just cross the line and be like, well, I'm going to cheat anyway.
Right. Well, that's why everyone's video being public would be cool.
Yeah. It would just take it out.
I agree.
Like,
Now,
who won the
here's
pistol
the thing.
workout?
Medeiros, I think.
It'd be nice to see the top
love to see
guy's
his.
video just to be like, here's how it's done.
Okay. This is the standard with
I don't know
no
if his
penalties.
is published though. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I haven't seen it either.
I mean, he's a guy that I would trust. Like I've seen his pistols. They're very good.
Yeah.
Noah's pistols are a little bit faster. Noah, I think was probably 30 seconds faster in that workout. And if they went head to head, Noah would win that workout. So that's the problem with me is like Noah has the capacity. He had no intention of cheating the workout. The one thing that I love that CrossFit, hopefully they'll start doing, is the people that are intentionally cheating. And people have brought this up online where people are either putting in wrong scores and then submitting videos that aren't of themselves.
Yeah.
I saw that where it was a different girl. Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I understand where CrossFit can put the hammer down on those people, but it needs to be more uniform for the top.
The funny thing is I'm actually not bitter about it at all. Like I'm not like, oh man, this is such bullshit. And I'm not criticizing it from that perspective. When Noah sent me his, hey, you got a major penalty, I actually said, with your major penalty, your score is going to be good enough that you're well above the cut line. Let them start let them start setting a standard that things are better. Like, cause I actually think it's better for the sport. Now,
I agree.
He still submitted an appeal that got rejected, but I get it. But it's more so, it's the principle of the situation. It's the saying, this is the standard and it has to be met. However, when we apply that standard, we apply it and we say that those reps are good, but when you do it, you're cheating, right? And like, well, we're not cheating.
What you meant by that is at the games, it was fine.
At the games, their judges said those reps are good. So then we operate under the assumption that, hey, this guy's been in the sport for a really long period of time, has done this movement with this standard at full speed. It's very, very hard to see. Like, I don't think regular people on the internet that are freeze framing and going stop and go and press and play have no idea how fast these people actually move in person. And they're faster than my air squats. Yeah. And you're trying to make a singular judgment call that you know is going to affect
based on a freeze frame.
Frame. And you're putting that, like, they pay to go into it, but then we burden the responsibility of judging people that we are so invested in, that we've supported their training. We've watched their videos. We've watched their movements. And like, it's not like I'm not willing to no rep people. I had a freaking meeting on Wednesday night and told everyone, like, we are going to do our best to hold you to the tightest standard that we possibly can, but it's on you guys as athletes, because I really don't know what CrossFit wants. Sometimes I see sketchy ass shit that goes through in the biggest competitions, like on the regional floor. And sometimes I see people get penalized. So I'm like, you guys uphold your own standards and we'll do our best to keep you on track and try to pull things back that are egregious. But it's a super big ask to say, like, this is the line and you got to ride it with people and be perfect at doing it. And anytime it's not perfect, you're deliberately cheating. It's like, I think that's an unrealistic, hyper-inflated way to let this whole system get changed.
Do the standards require you having a judge?
No, you can have a film.
Either you have a registered judge or you post a film, which from now on, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, why bother?
Video.
We're not even going to do judging.
Why bother?
Yeah, because all we do is we put ourselves under criticism pressure.
And that's more bodies that have to be there.
And we are legitimately trying.
Yeah.
Like, we're not.
I know Rep Travis multiple times in the workout.
It's not like there's a deliberate attempt to cheat. There's just, hey, you're trying to move as fast as possible, and we're trying to cultivate an opportunity for you to move as fast as possible within some realm of reason and moving at that speed. Because
here's where the freeze frame is really interesting, because I get it to some extent, because other sports now have replay where they are freeze framing. See, are his toes in when he catches the ball, or Was it off
Which
the
is
ball
fine,
off
but
his
we got to
finger?
freeze frame everybody.
Everybody,
Yeah,
exactly.
everybody.
That's the point, is that you're not doing that. Now, here's the thing, is we've done this in the past where there was a workout that Travis won that was a deadlift, and like, it was like the 55s workout or something, and then he got a no rep there. And I just did this by myself, but I went back and I pulled like 10 or 15 of the top guys' videos in that workout, and I freeze framed every single deadlift and paused them to where they said Travis had a no rep. And this, again, is not a knock. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, he got judged and other people didn't, but they were all the exact same. No one opened up their hips on at least 5 reps on every single one, which is how many reps he got no rep for, which cost him the win. The same thing with the bar facing burpee standard back in the day. I actually pulled like 40 or 50 of the top videos.
About the double
2-foot jump.
Yeah.
Thank
I
God
did it.
they finally.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they did. And I think they realized, like, wow, this is, you know, what's funny about it is I pulled their standard video of the girl doing it, and she was jumping when we freeze framed it. She was jumping off of 1 foot, and I pulled all these videos, of course, and was just kind of sharing them around. Like, look, this is not, you cannot meet this standard. And even though people are saying that, oh, he's jumping off 1 foot, yes, there are some that are more egregious than others. But if you freeze frame in this sport, it's very challenging. So
part
of
you're
this,
judging the people. You're judging the people that are watching it in real time,
Who are also counting.
yes, who
which,
are
by the
also
way, is very challenging in a workout.
Fuck yeah, it is.
When they're moving fast, the whole
Pressure to
point of
not
me,
fuck up the count.
I know.
Oh, man.
And it's on you.
Yeah.
especially with double
it's not
unders.
on you,
that
really. It's on
actually
them. But
happened in one of our athletes.
yeah.
So going back to that, my point is they need to think about the judging standards in a way that allow the judge an easier time to judge and allow the athlete an easier time to meet the standards, or at least understand very clearly where that standard is. I know that they're trying to do that, but that's something that needs to be talked about.
I also think when it comes to movement itself, I don't think creating rigid, concrete lines that say like it has to be done this way is ever going to be good unless there's a really clear way to see it. And I would say like you have these camera angle setups that are, you know, somebody's doing pistols and they're 30 feet away from a camera on a diagonal angle, and you're watching somebody do pistols and you're judging their depth. That's very different from like, hey, I'm standing next to them and I'm standing up, versus I'm standing next to them, I'm getting my knee to watch whether or not their hip is below their knee.
Does the judges course tell you where to stand for each workout?
No, but it would be impossible anyway with these workouts because you're also like trying not to get in the way of the camera. We had multiple lanes set up, so we're not running into.
Could you
our
imagine
people.
a judge running with the shuttle run?
Yeah,
to see both sides.
to see both sides.
Then you both look ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think that there was a problem in CrossFit that I'm glad is getting addressed, and I'm happy because there is special treatment that people that have high visibility do often get the benefit of the doubt. Like there were some videos of very high profile women in previous years opens that from my perspective were clearly not meeting the standard, and they leaned back on the clause that said, what did it say? Like if they're showing
like
the
these
capacity,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if they've illustrated the capacity to do this, it's okay if they meet standard, which is kind of a cop out.
Yeah.
And I agree. That's like one of the corruption things we talked about earlier is that there's a financial and a visible incentive that this person is in the next stage. So we're going to make it okay, where that generally doesn't help this group of people that are in the 90th percentile that are just striving to get up there, that are being held to the standard. So that was a big problem before. Now they're trying to solve it. So props to them, and I'm happy about it. I would just say the solution needs to be better. And I feel like it's almost unfair from the community perspective to say, okay, you guys are going through the judges course to do this. And then when you judge and you make these judgment calls that are happening in full speed, we are giving you absolutely zero authority, where the in-person competitions are the complete opposite. You put a judge in place, and if we say, hey, that wasn't right, they miscounted, they gave them a no rep that's not legitimate, you get zero opportunity to go back and review the footage. And I'm like, well, now you're creating like a real weird double standard
That
to
is
say,
weird.
yeah. So I mean, I think that the solution, I think open sourcing the whole thing, and also that nobody is allowed to vote or make any comments on any of these things. Like, unless they have submitted a video and are part of the competitive pool.
Oh, I was going to say, because it's going to get out of control.
Yeah, but you have these,
No.
Mob. Just like, hey, let's just go fuck with this guy. We don't even know who he is.
Yeah. But if you had that, then like you also could be like, okay, well, this person's going out saying all these videos aren't good. Well, let's go in theirs. And
I like that.
Then enforcing some sort of penalty if somebody is actually egregiously cheating. Like, and you could have certain things that fall into that category, like
no protein for a year.
or like you have a 4-year suspension for drugs. Why is there not a multiple year suspension for cheating? Or
I think there should be.
But yeah, so I think they need to work on that. Maybe that athletes player union thing can start to work on it, because I'm sure some people in this athletes player union were probably part of the no rep slaughter, because they're applying it. I mean, it's not.
Is there
just
another
like,
movement besides the pistols that got crazy this year? Like someone said, all the controversy. I guess I didn't really see it. What was it?
Well, I mean, I don't think it was controversy. I think just a lot of people got pistol no reps. I don't know
Is it
what.
just the pistols?
Most of my athletes have already been approved for video one.
I think it is the pistols mostly.
Yeah, I think it's just the pistols.
Yeah, we've had quite a few that have been hit hard with the pistols. Some of which I reviewed and I thought they were okay.
Yeah,
you know, there are some that I can definitely see. Yeah, your hips were not open. They were just going so fast.
Yeah.
But no one was blatantly cheating that I know of.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good on the no reps then. Let's finish it out because we got other shit to do. Okay, let's actually just end it. Let me see. What do we got?
Get those grab bags.
Which of the coaches won for the highest caffeine consumption throughout the weekend?
Definitely not me.
It wasn't me.
It was
I only
me.
had one.
I'm not a coach, but I definitely
or Ryan. Ryan had a cup of coffee every time I looked at him.
Ryan looked a little bit strung out one of the days to the point where I was almost like, you need to either go for a run or a walk or go home. I feel like concerned for your vitality right now.
Did Brandon do any of the quarterfinal workouts?
No.
Let's see. Alexis wants to know blackheads or ingrown hairs. What's more satisfying to watch? But we'll
we
get to
can't-
that.
Alexis
We'll get to
knows.
that on her episode.
She knows your answer.
Me. Yeah.
What is the average individual fitness level that it takes for people to qualify for a team?
I don't know how to quantify that.
Well, to answer that, you qualifying for a team is often about just what elite athletes you have in your environment that are going individual, that are counting their scores. Because we have a whole team that is competing in the
You
team.
mean just to make it to quarterfinals?
I think that's what they meant, right?
I thought it meant like going from quarterfinals to semifinals. It's hard to know because the teams change so much every year.
And it depends on the
Can
test.
we get rid of the team? Like you either register as a team or this.
I agree that should be the
That is
case.
so
You have to
ridiculous.
register as
But
a
there's
team.
reasons I don't understand why they do it.
I think the reason is just to get more participation. If you have an affiliate and you have a guy that's really strong, somebody's going to come up. Like one of the teams asked me to be on their team. They're like, if something in the open comes out, your strength is going to count. So
Yeah, but
I
that's
was going to
wax
sign
sauce.
up. I agree, but that's why I would think CrossFit would support it, because
Change
they
it.
would want.
Last question. Jamie says, general discussion is warranted on Mike's clutch clean to re-rack Alexis's final overhead squat.
Oh
attempt.
man, I got a funny story.
For the
on that.
buzzer beater.
I watched it.
First of all, he's just so strong.
What was the
You know,
weight
it
at that point?
It was like 257 or something like that.
I think she went from 252 that she hit.
Yeah.
Power cleaned
Then
it
went
up.
up to
put the-
257.
I had an athlete that dropped like a 276 pound overhead squat with 30 seconds left, and I was like, I can't clean this. Sorry, man.
fresh.
Yeah, like no,
Or
I
not.
can't.
Like just
I
no
would
warm
have
up.
I would have to warm up for 20
Yeah.
minutes, man.
Yeah. Who was it?
Jordan Vance. I was like, I'm sorry.
Did he look at you expecting you to do
No,
it?
he didn't. But like he was like, should I go again? I'm like, we'd have to pick it up together because I can't clean this.
Dude, some of the most like crazy like sketchiness is when people, even when you think you got it, the two people picking up a bar, like doing the one hand or the one-sided clean to go up. It's like it's not getting it up to chest level. It's like you you miscalculate where that rack's gonna be, and then you like
can miss it.
tweak something.
I had a sketchy one. There were two guys here, and all three of us went to lift the bar. So one was in the middle, like clean grip, and then me and the other guy were on the collars picking it up.
Just let go.
And we got it kind of picked up, and we didn't time the like from the hip to the shoulder, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And my arm was stuck like this, holding. I know I wasn't holding it by myself, but it was like a 380-pound bar, and I'm like, oh my god, my bicep's gonna tear. Full panic mode, trying to get it to my shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right. So any other thing about Mike hitting that clean? You want to?
let's not give Mike
Yeah,
any
okay.
positive
Yeah.
attention. He's
All right.
strong. We know it.
Congratulations.
That's the episode. It's a long one. We have the TTT Compete cycle update video that will also drop this week if any of y'all were interested in that. Where can they follow you, boys?
They can follow me at MAXELHAG on
All right, that's all the
IG.
time we have for today.
Don't follow me. See you guys.